Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Hagee and Tammy Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
All right. Welcome everyone back to the latest episode of Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity podcast. And I am personally excited tonight to welcome Daniel Dickerson. I have a past with Daniel. I started working with Daniel when he was in high school and dealing with some knee injuries, and we just really connected, and I think the world of him and have loved seeing how he has grown and risen above his adversity. But I'm going to let Daniel tell you a little bit more about where he is now and what he's doing, and then we're going to talk about his adversities. But welcome, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going? Um, I'm Daniel Dickerson. Currently a student athlete at Dordt University up in Sioux Center, Iowa. Been playing football here now for 4 years. I've grown a tremendous amount in my faith over the time here. I'm actually looking forward to playing one more year as well. Had the opportunity through actually some adversity, but with adversity, there's also flowers that come out of that, I suppose. Excited to be here. Excited to be able to share my story. I think there's definitely some good stuff. As a teacher, I'm going to be a teacher. I think it's important to look back on our past, on our adversity, to learn from that and to see how we've come and how we've grown. So I'm excited to share my story. And
Well, Daniel, I'm not sure if you realize, and for our listeners, but Challenger Deep represents the lowest point in the ocean. The lowest point in the ocean is actually called Challenger Deep. And so Jeff and I wrote a book on athletes that have been at their low point and how they have used whatever they were facing and they've used it to rise above and create something better. So I know you've had some challenges with injuries. I know you've had other challenges. So what's your Challenger Deep moment of where you were at a low, but it's helped you elevate yourself in the long run?
Yeah, certainly. So it probably starts back to my sophomore year. Kind of got to give you a little bit of backstory before we get to that point. But sophomore in high school, I started playing football when I was real young, but I was always pretty good at it, pretty gifted. Came to my sophomore year, started on the varsity squad. Things were going great, had a great season. Second team all state as a sophomore. Things were just looking up for me at that point. And I was really caught up in that idea that I was born to be a football player, and I had my identity set in that. And things were good for me at that point. um, I wouldn't say it's my highest high of all time now that I've grown a lot from that, but maybe at that point that was probably a really special time for me because I was at the highest point in my career as far as football. So things go on. Sophomore year is great. Spring comes around, I'm doing training for football, things are going well. Continue to getting better. Well, then my junior year comes around, first game we play, that keeps going on. I play really well, having some coaches that are reaching out to me, talking to me. I'm saying, they're real interested in me playing for them in their programs. Well, then week two comes around, start off with some couple big runs, but ultimately, like I think it was on my third carry, I would get struck in my knee and tear my ACL, MCL, and my meniscus, and that kind of just stripped everything from me at that point. Like I said, I had my identity in football. I was stuck in that, and I felt like everything had been lost at that point. And so, yeah, I can remember just being lost, not knowing what I was going to do with my life, you know, moving forward because I was so set on the fact that I was going to be a football player and that, wherever I went to school, it was to be a football player. And so that really just flipped me upside down. and I had to find a new identity.
This episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Are you ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off all their doTERRA products and supplements. Head to the link in our show notes or go to confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
So tell us about that process, because the whole idea of adversity in that moment, you are at the lowest of lows. We get that. And looking at it from your perspective now, there's a lot of lessons to be learned and you've grown so much from it. But talk about the journey out of that. How did you overcome that and rise above it rather than letting it defeat you to get to where you are now?
I mean, it just starts with, I mean, my parents were really supportive of me. They knew that I was struggling. They knew that. And so they sought to find me help. Obviously, Tammy, you were one of the people that helped me through that, and they brought me to you. And then also I had a chaplain at my school that really helped me find my faith. I mean, I went to church as a kid and everything, and I was a regular, Sunday at goer. But I never really made my faith my own. And so at this point, there's also COVID that's going on, so things are kind of getting scrambled there. Not able to go to church as much so often. So yeah, I mean, it was a deep hole to kind of get out of with COVID coming around. I remember I got cleared from my ACL initially. It was over Zoom because COVID happened. It was in March. I got cleared, March of 2020, that I got cleared from my ACL initially, and I remember it was over Zoom. But yeah, like it was, you weren't able to see people face to face. And so digging out of that hole, you have a lot of time with yourself, kind of in your own thoughts. And, I dug a lot into my faith more with my parents. Like I said, put me around good people. Yeah, my faith really is kind of where I centered it. And that's what pulled me out of a lot of it. Finding a purpose for myself. I remember my chaplain met with me. It was shortly after I had torn my ACL, but remember we had a conversation. And I was like, he's telling him that, I was struggling with my identity. Is like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I thought I was supposed to be this football player that was going to be, D1, going to have all these offers and this and that, but now it's all lost. Well, he flipped that around back to me and was like, that doesn't change anything. Like this incident doesn't change who you are. You've always been a great person. The Lord has already, written who you are and who you're supposed to be. So maybe look at this adversity as an opportunity to grow and not so much as a punishment on you, because that's how I initially felt. I remember I felt like it was a punishment to me that, I wasn't faithful in my faith. But he pointed to me, James 1, verses 2-4, which is count it all joy, my brothers, for when you face trials of various kinds, produces steadfastness, and steadfastness makes you more complete and whole, lacking in nothing. And so that verse is something that stuck with me. I was actually baptized in April this past year with that verse. That was one that I shared. It's been something that I've always kind of written down, and it's been on my heart, my mind. And my faith has been that centerpiece.
I'm hearing faith, obviously, and I know that through us talking. And maybe it seems minor to people listening, or so many athletes go through injury. And I'm sure you had friends or teammates that had injuries as well. But when it happens to you, it's different. And I know there are so many athletes going through that injury that, oh gosh, this is messing up my blueprint. Because like you said, you had thought you were going D1. And it came at a critical time. Now you've got COVID on top of that as well. But what advice, besides your faith, I know that's an important piece, but besides your faith, what advice would you give to the athlete out there that's struggling with that knee injury or that shoulder injury, or just anything that has derailed them from their career?
I think a good analogy is maybe stacking paint in a way. You have to stack the good days and you have to almost toss out the bad days. Like, you're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days. Especially with rehab, you have your days where, oh man, my knee feels really good today. I think I'm going to be ahead of schedule. And then you'll have that one bad day. Maybe you tweak it. Maybe something pops and feels weird. It swells up quick. I mean, you're going to have those days, but if you let those days determine the next day, then, it's going to ruin the next day. Right. So It's important to be able to have a quick memory. I mean, as an athlete, that's something I've grown into as well. As a competitor, you know, you have to be able to have that short memory of those bad days and to be able to remember the good days, and know that there's good days ahead. You know, um, that was, yeah, that was really something that was impactful for me. Um, you know, envisioning the good days, envisioning what I was, what I could be, what I will be again.
Since that time now, looking back over those years, as I said earlier, that was a major adversity, probably the biggest you had faced at that moment. Have you faced as big or bigger ones since then?
Um, so I've been pretty unfortunate, I guess, since I've been at college. I've faced a lot of adversity as far as injuries as well. Some major, some minor. You know, they just kind of stack up and then they keep you out for a season. It gets that happens. It's part of life. Um, I mean, obviously COVID was a challenge in itself, but yeah, stacked on top of the ACL, definitely a big challenge. Um, so I don't know that I've faced something like that quite so, but I've definitely faced my adversity, and from that adversity that I conquered during my first round, I guess, with my ACL and COVID on top of that, has definitely allowed me to have a different mindset, knowing that, you know, there are going to be, like I said, flowers that come out of the adversity. You know, I'm going to be the growth that comes out of it. Um, you know, like I shared the verse, you know, I'm going to become more complete, more steadfast, so that I lack in nothing. You know, there's wisdom that comes out of these things. There's conversations that you're going to have with people that bring you to the next level, to bring you out of that hole. Yeah, but I faced some other injuries. Like I said, I tore my PCL on my sophomore year here at Dort, and that was um, after having a really good game. My first game, I had nine or 10 carries on 115 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think. And that was my first real action as a college athlete. And so at that point, you know, it's like, wow, I might have something, you know, something here. Like I'm finding myself again. Um, and things are going to be great here. Well, then the next game, first play, I get the ball, I get tackled from behind and land on the front of my knee, which then I tear my PCL in my opposite knee that I tore my ACL in already. So now I have two bad knees. People look at it that way, but I've learned not to look at it that way. I don't let the injuries kind of determine who I am, or, you know, I don't use that as an excuse. Never really wanted to. And I remember having that conversation with Tammy, however long ago that was, but having that conversation, like not letting that be an excuse, you know, oh, you have a bad knee. Like, you know, people do say that to you, but it's, you know, it shouldn't be an excuse. It's an opportunity for growth. So it should be something that, you know, it makes you who you are. So be proud of it almost in a way, I guess. You know, yeah, I have a bum knee and maybe I tore my ACL, but, you know, I'm stronger for it. I'm better for it. And I've grown from that. Um, so yeah, tearing my
So,
PCL was an opportunity for me to grow further. It opened up another door for me, and that's why I'm going to be able to be here a fifth year, further my education and continue my growth, as a man, not only in my career, but also in my faith.
you know, I love that message that you just said, Daniel, because here you are, you went through this major injury and it kind of like changed your path as far as being recruited and all. And you've bounced back from that. And then you have an amazing game and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm back on track, followed up by another injury. And I know the typical thought that a lot of athletes would have, oh no, here we go again. So I love your message of you didn't let that define you, that, okay, how am I going to rise above that? But if you are honest, did you have that moment where you thought, oh gosh, here I go again? Or what was the initial thought you had there?
Honestly, no, I didn't really have that initial thought. I remember I did it in the game. I knew I did it. You know, I was like, I know this feeling of having a torn ligament in my knee. I know what it feels like to have your knee be unstable. I remember I jogged off, well, more like hopped off to the sideline, told the trainer, I was like, I definitely tore either my ACL or an important ligament in my knee because it does not feel right. And so he's like, okay, well, we're gonna tape you up, and you know, if you want to try, you can, but we'll keep you on the sideline for now. And so, at this point, obviously, like, you know, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I did do it more than likely. We'll get evaluated in the locker room after the game. But I remember, yeah, I was the first person in the locker room after the game. He evaluates me. And it's pretty obvious at that point. My knee's unstable. He's able to do it just by a simple test and be able to tell that. Um, But I remember I walked out of the locker room after that, found my running back coach, and I said, Coach, like this isn't going to be a setback. This is going to be an opportunity for me to be able to grow. And I'm excited to get back to work and to have a better season next year. Um, and yeah, I mean, there was never really a doubt in my mind. I was excited, like, oh, I'm going to get 3 more years of football now. I get another opportunity to play football. And on top of that, now I'm getting my master's, and I'm going to be further along in my education, and it's going to help me for my future. So, um, no, honestly, yeah, no.
What I love about that, Daniel, is that's the exact message we're hoping to bring across to people in the book, through the podcast and everything, is when you can face that adversity, rise above it. The next time you face adversity, it may be similar, it may be worse, but I've already gone through something this bad. And you know what? I survived and I thrived and I got better because of it. I can do that again and I can get better again. And that's what we're hoping. My hope is people can read the book, go through these stories that we share on the podcast, and not have to go through these big ones and just use other people's adversities to get it. But the reality is we're going to face adversity. And when we can look at examples like this and say, you know what? Yeah, when he tore his ACL, it was the end of the world. But then the next injury, whether it was the same, worse, or whatever, he realized, you know what, I can get through this, and here's the opportunity. Here's the path I'm going to take and the opportunities it's going to give me, rather than it being the end of the road. So I love that.
Yeah, definitely. I do. But one thing that I think is really important, and that Jeff and I talk about a lot on these podcasts, and it's the foundation of what I believe the foundation for everything, foundation for confidence, foundation of success, but it's knowing your why, the bigger purpose, and not just playing for the touchdowns, the stats, but the bigger thing that drives you, that gives you that burning passion to get out of bed early in the morning to go to 6 a.m.s or have those late night lifts. So what is your why? What's your burn that makes you, in the face of these adversities that you've had, keeps you showing up with this motivation and determination?
Yeah. I didn't even know you're going to ask that question, but it's perfect because, Dordt University, where I go, where I play football, that is a big question they ask us. We have our goal sheets we fill out every week. It's like, who are you? And it's not literally your name. It's who are you? Who do you want to be? And why are you here? So what is your why? And so that's something that every week I look back on, maybe I want to tweak it, maybe I want to add on to it, but it's always got one thing in it. And it's the fact that I'm here to honor my creator, to grow closer to my creator, and to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. And I got a book right now called Practicing the Way. Little plug to that, but we're doing that with the football team. Got a couple guys. We're learning, practicing the way, how to be with Jesus, and how to become like him. And so that is my why. Something I'll send you those action pictures later on. You'll see a lot when I get in the end zone. First thing I do is I point up to the sky, point up to my creator, give him glory. Because ultimately it's not me that is doing it. It's him giving me that ability, giving me the opportunities. And, I want to make sure that that is known and that he has all the glory. Another thing with that, to add to that, on my wrist tape, I've thought about getting even a tattoo on my wrist, but I write Soli Deo Gloria, which I'm a history buff. So that's actually Latin for to God be the glory. But that is something that has resonated with me since coming here to Dordt. I heard the term. I think I heard it at some point in high school, but Dordt has really used that term a lot here as well. They have it on their seal, and it's something that has come into my heart and to mean a lot for me in my faith as well. To God be all the glory.
I know that your dream was Division 1, but due to these adversities, you've ended up at this amazing college, Dordt, that has helped you grow in so many different ways. If you were to look back now, are you glad this all happened, these adversities?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I would be a fraction of a man that I am today without those things that happened. I wouldn't have been tested. I wouldn't have been pushed to grow and to overcome those things. If they hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been brought here. I had the conversation with my dad. I had a conversation with some people, administration at Dort here actually recently as well. I wouldn't change a thing. I had adversity. I had things that I had to struggle through and push through, but ultimately, in the end of it, I came out better, came out stronger, and it brought me here to a place that I get to grow into who I am and to who my creator created me to be. Yeah, I mean, there's like I could want nothing more now at this point in my life. Now I've been here 4 years, and I've grown more in that and my understanding of that as well. The joy that you get out of growing closer with your creator and being able to be at a university that helps you foster that. It's a special place here at Dort is. Yeah, I wouldn't change a single thing.
Tell me a little bit about your philosophy and process around how you set goals for yourself and go after achieving those goals. And what are some of your goals going forward?
So like I said, we have goal sheets. Yeah. So we always will typically will have meetings weekly. I haven't been able to attend so many, but I do meet up with coach to have those opportunities to still kind of discuss what he talks about. A lot of it does have to do with goal setting. And we came up with this analogy recently. You don't want your goals to be something that you can't control as much. And so this analogy that we created was this egg in a frying pan analogy, right? So you have the frying pan. Yeah, you have the frying pan and the egg, right? So you crack the egg, you put the egg in the frying pan. So you start in the center, and that's typically the first thing that you can keep it all collected in one spot, right? You got the yellow yolk that stays together. You can break it if you want, but you have the most control over that part of the egg when you're cooking it. Then you have the egg white, which kind of is free flowing, but you can kind of control where it's at. And then there's the pan where the pan is, right? You don't really have much control where the pan is. And obviously you're holding it, but you know what I'm trying to say there in that analogy. But what we try to focus on is that yolk, right? That thing that you can control, the goals that you can control, that you can work for, and not so much say, all state or all conference at this point or all American, right? I can't always control that. It comes down to a board of people. And so that's what I seek to do is put my goals in something that I can control. So for example, like I said, I'm reading this book right now. Maybe it's something as simple as reading a chapter once a night. That's my plan to achieve the goal, but my goal is to practice the way to become more like Jesus, to follow my creator, to glorify him. And so my plan for that may be to read a chapter out of the Bible and a chapter out of this book every night. Or 2-3 times a week. One thing that I do a lot is prayer time. Like I try to prioritize that. I say, I'll have 15 minutes of prayer time before bed every night, or something of that sort. You have it, you have a desire, which is kind of the goal, right? And then you have a plan. So you have to make a plan to make it legitimate. To make your goal legitimate, you have to make a plan. And my plan is usually something, you give it a number, maybe just recently, I guess, looking, recovering from injury, right? I want to be able to recover from my injury in say, 7.5 months or whatever. Just an example. I don't know what injury I would be recovering from here, but say 7.5 months. Well, that means I'm going to have to do PT. I'm going to have to eat right. And so my plan might be, see Chris, who's our trainer, see Chris 3 times a week at least. And on top of that, make sure that I'm eating, X amount of protein per day or whatever, making sure that I'm taking care of myself, getting 8 hours of sleep a night. And that is my plan to get to my goal.
I love the fact that you mentioned, because I think too many young athletes, they set their goal as they want to be that All-American or all-conference or, something stat wise. And it's really hard for me in my role to convey that you can't control that. What you can control is all the little daily processes that, if you do consistently, stack up to help you have a better chance of being those all conference players or that stats that you want. So, you're speaking to my heart with that message. And I love hearing someone that's actually doing this and having success in sharing that philosophy. So I think that's so important.
That is, and that's, Tammy and I work with a lot of people on that and do it ourselves with what we call our MITs, our most important tasks. And these are just the daily things that we have to accomplish that build up to the bigger things.
I know that you're a big football fan, obviously playing football. So I didn't ask you to think about this before, but I'm going to put you on the spot. I know that God has been a strong influence and your role model. But when you look at the sports world, what team, what athlete in any sport has motivated you the most?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a couple that come to mind. Um, Najee Harris. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so Najee
Okay.
Harris is a big guy. Love to watch him run and how hard he works. Um, yeah, he's just a big, powerful guy. That's kind of my style of running too. Just run downhill, get as many yards as you can. Don't get tackled, kind of idea. Um, Another one, Ashton Genty. I mean, everybody's heard that name this
Yeah.
year. He was baptized for this season as well. He's been growing in his faith. I remember that when they played in the national championship series, they all spoke about their faith. Boise State did, and he was one of those guys that on his turf tape. He had verses. I think there was a Psalms verse that he had on his wristband too. But yeah, he's another guy I definitely look to for that. Yeah, I mean those are two athletes that I look
Yeah.
to see how they play football, to see how they run. Um, and I hope to model my game after them, I guess, right? I mean, high level athletes. So
Yeah. I will have to say this, and I don't know much about him, but I remember watching Arizona State and Scatterboo, and
mhm.
I thought of you because that's the image I have of this guy that runs hard and won't stop and doing anything for his team. Um, but anyway, I love the whole Arizona State. I'm not an Arizona State fan. Jeff's an Arizona fan, so he doesn't even like when I bring it up. But they had such a great story too of, they were picked last in their conference and rising above. So that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting off track there, but to me that was a great Challenger Deep story as well. Well, Daniel, I know that God has, controlled your journey and you've given it to God. And due to the additional year, you did share with us now that you're able to student teach as you're going through your last year. So, what's after football?
Like I still got one more year, thankfully, to figure it out. But I got a couple things in mind. I know that actually went on a mission trip in March of this year. Had the opportunity to go to Liberia, which is a West African country, um, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people, to impact people, and they impacted me, as well. I got to be able to help them do things, to get things done, to share the word of God with them. But they also, they did the same with me. They shared the word of God with me, touched my heart. And so one of my things that I'm kind of looking into right now is to become a missionary, actually, and to go back, work in some of those orphanages that we were in, and maybe even teach in those orphanages, if that is, kind of what the Lord has planned for me. If that's not it, I'm kind of open to also just teaching here in the States. I've been working in a public school. I grew up in a public school, but I've been working in a public school doing student teaching. I think it's crucial that we have strong role models in the Christian, or not the Christian, but the public school system, just as much as we do in the Christian schools. And so that's another dream of mine. In the long term for that, if I were to become a teacher in the States, then I would want to become like a curriculum director as well. Trying to create lesson planning, curriculum that really um, really glorifies the learner as who they are. They're creative individuals. They have the ability to achieve high expectations. And I want to be able to make sure that, as a curriculum director, that's what students are, especially around history, because I feel like history, this is getting more into my like philosophy of history, I guess, but I feel like history is being taught so much about name and dates nowadays. And people are getting bored of that because, you can just Google things. You can just, um, chat GPT or whatever, which is something we struggle with in the classroom today. Um, but obviously, like those are important things, but like also researching, you know, thinking about the historical content, how you can apply what you learn through looking at the past to today is huge too. And I want to be able to help students find those critical thinking skills as well, and be able to engage with history. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of the two things I'm looking at. Obviously, if the Lord blesses me with an opportunity to play football beyond this, then that would be awesome too. Got some buddies that are making their way up, actually from Dort, that are making their way up into NFL caliber of things. So, maybe if things track well, maybe I'll find myself in there. But, like I said, just kind of letting the Lord lead me. I'm okay with wherever he takes me. So.
Well, you have a big fan here, and will support you in any way possible. But tell our listeners, if they want to follow you and Dort, what social media do you have? How can they follow you and cheer for you?
Yeah, certainly. Let me pull up my Instagram. I think so my Instagram, Daniel.Dickerson25. It's kind of mostly what I use for as far as social media for myself. But Dort football has their own page as well. If you want to follow that, I think it's just Dort. Yeah, just Dort University Football. No spaces, no caps. Type that in. That'll take you there. There's also the Dort Defenders, which is our athletics page on Instagram as well. I think they have the same thing on Twitter. Like I said, Instagram's kind of mostly what I use, but I use it on Twitter as well. And then, yeah, I mean, we have our own athletics page. Just, look us up, look up Dort University Football. That'd be the first thing that probably pops up. There's not a whole lot of universities under the name Dort. It's spelled DORDT though, which is important. Some people miss the D. So yeah, DORET, Dort University. Great place, Christian University up in Sioux Center, Iowa. Couldn't speak, better about it. It's amazing. Love it.
Well, Daniel, this has been awesome to hear your story and hear your story of how you've faced adversity, overcome it, and risen above it, and created a great future for yourself. So thank you for being a part of this.
Say thanks for having me. I mean, I love being able to share, having an opportunity, something I've always been passionate about, why I want to be a teacher. It's important to hear of other people's stories, to share stories, and that's how we all grow as individuals, is to learn from others. So
exactly. So any athlete out there listening and you're facing an injury, use Daniel as your role model here. But again, proud of you and so glad that you could be on this Challenger Deep, because you are the role model of what we are trying to highlight here. So best of luck to you, Daniel.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And for our listeners as well, for this, obviously, we've got this episode and other episodes. The book, Challenger Deep, Athletes Rise Above Adversity. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get, if you pay the shipping and handling, a free copy at jeffhagee.com/free book. And love to have you reach out to us and learn more about it. So thank you all.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/Challenger Deep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete Program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.